Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest polling from YouGov as reported in the Times, which shows Labour with an eye-watering 17-point lead over the Conservatives. Now, that in itself is bad enough if you're a Tory MP, but when you drill down you can see that the party is over for Liz Truss's intended brand of insanity politics, and Tory MPs who still want to win the next election will need to work very quickly now. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, in terms of the headline news, voting intention, so YouGov produced a poll just before Friday's budget statement. It showed the Conservatives narrowing the gap a little with Labour. Truss's honeymoon bounce back continued. It wasn't an impressive bounce back. I actually thought the Tories might catch Labour before the new year, expose the Tories again. That's what I thought. Over the summer, I could see Starmer having to go to the Labour Party conference with the Tories pretty close to Labour in the polls, maybe even neck and neck, maybe even a point ahead. And I could see, a bit of nervousness amongst delegates. I could see, this party conference being derailed a little bit. All Truss had to do was announce some crowd-pleasing measures. It was easy. People didn't need to see the results. They're reasonable. They know that things take time. She could have announced these wonderful sounding measures and the public would have given her the time to see them through. It would have all gone to hell next year, of course, but in the short term, she'd have gotten her boost. It would have calmed down nervous Tory MPs and she would have had the room to do exactly what she wanted in terms of stripping what's left of our country's assets while the public are distracted with talk of shiny things to come. But she didn't do that, did she? Instead, she said, ordinary people have had it too good. It's time to start showing a bit more love to the rich. Then her Chancellor gave a budget speech that went way further than the tax cuts she'd been promising beforehand. She was slowly closing the gap with Labour as people were going, well, let's give her a chance, let's give her a chance. Oh, she's talking about growing the economy. Well, that's good, because we've been told there's going to be a recession. Give her a chance, give her a chance. Now that gap, just a few days later, after that budget speech, that gap is larger than it has ever been while the Conservatives have been in power. Since that last poll just before the budget, the Conservatives have lost 4 points and Labour have gained 5. Now, that's interesting itself. It means the support hasn't just flipped from Conservatives to Labour because Labour gained more support than the Tories lost. So it's a sign that Labour are breaking through on their own as well, not just being the beneficiary of another Tory cock-up. Now, there will be those who will remember, oh, Phil, come on, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I remember Ed Miliband had a lead over the Conservatives and he was still trounced in the following election. Yeah, it wasn't as big as a lead as this, but I'm not going to base it on the size of the lead because this lead as well is going to narrow. What will happen is Truss is going to be forced to have to say something to calm things down. She's going to. So the gap will narrow again. It's not going to stay like this. But Ed Miliband did have a lead and it was still a decent lead. And as I've alluded to in a recent video as well, what happens though when you break down, because that's the overall voting intention, when you break it down, you look at it, because this is mid-term polling. It's based on the thinking of voters right now. Come a general election, with some voters, their thinking changes a little. Voters realise that their decisions have consequences in a way that doesn't apply when responding to a poll like this. The tick you put on a ballot paper matters. The tick you put on a web form for a polling company doesn't. Up until recently, ever since Labour lost power, the Conservatives have always polled ahead on 2 key factors: economic competence and leadership. Even when Labour had that poll lead, they were still behind the Conservatives on strength of leadership and economic competence. Now, people have commented that Keir Starmer has clearly been working on things this summer. The way he delivers his public statements is different. It's more sort of human, people are calling it. He's been working on his style, clearly. But at the conference, it's also been noted by those in attendance that he's looking more presidential, is the term I've seen. Now, he's not a president. He's not even trying to be a president. We don't have those. When people vote, they vote for a candidate and the government is chosen by the MPs sent to Parliament. But there are quite a lot of people who vote as if they're voting for a president. Quite a lot of swing voters put their tick by the name of someone they don't know, of a party they don't care about, purely because of the person leading that party. For many voters, it is a stark choice, not between two parties or anything like that. It's a stark choice between the two potential prime ministers. So it's important for any Labour or Tory leader to present themselves as the best individual choice. Now, contrast Starmer right now with Truss. He was straight in with a plan to deal with the rising energy bills that the public approved of. The Labour conference has announced that the top rate of tax will be going straight back when they're in power, as long as a few other things. In reality, I mean, that top rate's probably going back much sooner. But then what? The Tories will have just U-turned on their own policy and done what Labour said they should have done. To win the election, the competing parties have to show they are the party of strong leadership and economic competence. Truss has blown her chance at economic competence. She's completely blown it. I said over summer, Labour would prefer Rishi Sunak to win the contest, but they'll not be worried about Liz Truss either. And so it's turned out. And the reason I say that they would have preferred Rishi Sunak is he'd already blown his economic competence potential, because he was still the Chancellor that led to massive increases in the cost of living and massive increases in taxation as well. So he, as far as the public were concerned, he'd already blown it. Liz Truss had a chance, but now she hasn't. Like, even if she U-turns on the most unpopular policies now, which she's probably going to have to on some, it'll be clear that she's made mistakes. People don't want their government making mistakes with the economy. Then there's the leadership issue. How can Truss now appear to be a strong leader? If she U-turns on a load of these policies and then doesn't go ahead with the tax cuts she proposed for next year as well, then she looks like she doesn't know what she's doing. But if she sticks by her guns, you think, oh, well, she'll stick by her guns, and that's strong leadership. Tory MPs will turn on her. If there's a confidence vote, then just as with Boris Johnson before her, unless she wins big, it doesn't actually matter what the result is. It doesn't matter. It's not a binary thing. It's not a win or lose. If she only just wins, as Johnson only just won his, it exposes the fact that about half of her party are against her. It's just a matter of time then, because her authority's shot. She has made a spectacular error. As predicted, Boris Johnson did not remain the UK's worst Prime Minister for very long. But I never expected it to be this quick. He's not now. Never mind, he's not now the worst Prime Minister this country's ever had. He's not the worst Prime Minister this country's ever had this year. He's not even the worst Prime Minister this month. That's how bad Liz Truss has messed up. If there is a strong correlation between election success and winning the battle for economic competence and leadership, then the Tories under Truss have already lost. She went so hard and so fast on her misguided approach, there is no way to turn that ship around in time. Like, you consider Black Wednesday, that was the last run on the pound. Happened when John Major was in power, but he'd only just won an election. He had years to go before the next general election. Years to repair his image. And he did get the economy back in reasonable shape. People were happy with it before the election. But he personally never recovered his image for economic competence, because how could you after that mess? Truss is not going to get the economy back in shape, so she has no chance. She's also actually more culpable for the economic mess than Major was. You know, Major also lost the leadership credibility stakes thanks to rampant Tory sleaze. It looked like he had no grip on his party. Truss also has no chance of establishing authority. In her case, because her MPs are going to demand that she recover the party's fortunes. That can only be done with U-turns. And if she won't move in the direction they wanted to, they're going to force her out of the driving seat more explicitly. I do not believe that all 150, which I reckon it is about, very vulnerable Tory MPs are simply going to stand by and let Truss kick their party out of power for a generation. Next week, Truss and her cabinet will be traipsing off to the Tory party conference in Birmingham. Truss is having a crucial conference in the heart of a Labour voting city, at the same time as a rail strike, just 2 days after energy bills will have gone up by hundreds of pounds a year, when Labour had a plan to stop it going up by even a penny, with tax cuts for the rich, with the expectation of public funding cuts to follow in the next budget statement to balance the books. She'll be presiding over a pound that is worth less than it was when she became Prime Minister just 4 weeks beforehand, so the cost of everything is going to be rising as a result. and she will have to announce policies. Conference is a time to announce what you're going to do to make the country better over the following year. What is she going to say? Double down on more of the same that caused this mess? Then she's knackered. Remember that if polling is to believe, most of the delegates in attendance will have actually preferred Boris Johnson to remain in place. If Truss doesn't have a plan to restore the party's fortunes, then despite the fact they voted for her over Sunak, they're not going to be impressed. Truss is already famous for being really bad at speeches. Imagine her performance if she also senses disapproval from the assembled throng of the party faithful. I did not expect Truss's honeymoon period to be over this quickly. I thought she'd be going to the conference riding a wave of optimism. I thought next year's conference would be stickier, but this year she'd be going on a wave of hope that would see her through till the end of the year. She might have been expecting to hail the triumph of her 4 weeks in office so far, the hope she's given millions with her no-nonsense approach to cutting through to the real issues and delivering on the will of the people. Instead, she's messed it right up. Even to the Tory party delegates in attendance, who will probably approve of her policies, they will see any speech trying to big up how she's going to remake the economy as pure fantasy. And I suspect Truss also thought this. I cannot imagine that she can go ahead with her planned speech now. It will need rewriting. Boasting about policies that have dumped the party into the biggest poll deficit with Labour since they were in opposition is not going to go down well, even if the members approve of the policies. I have never thanked any Labour leader for adopting a policy that I approve of if it's voter repellent, basically. If it's going to turn us off from the public, do not talk about that policy. You can achieve nothing in opposition. And Tory party members surely understand that as well as I do. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.